this evening. Okay, I'm going to repeat myself. Good evening, everybody. Pleasure to have all of you join us in this very, very special fourth edition of A Coach's Journey, a series that is very close to my heart because one is I get to know all the coaches that I partner with to bring about the series. And it's an opportunity for coaches who are just about to get credentialed to take back practical tips and what it means, to go through this journey with grit and resilience. Yeah, so we'll get started. And like always, there's a theme that's attached to every coach's journey because all of us are unique. And so I have my little script, which I'm going to read from. Okay, so this time we're going to explore the power of 9 in a coach's journey. 9 is a number rich in meaning. It signifies completion, mastery, and transformation. Across cultures and disciplines, 9 represents the culmination of experience and the transition to a new level of understanding. In numerology, it is seen as the number of wisdom, spiritual growth, and the fulfillment of a cycle before something new begins. In nature, pregnancy lasts 9 months, symbolizing a period of deep transformation before birth. In mathematics, multiples of 9 always reduce back to 9, reinforcing a sense of wholeness and integrity. And in human development, we evolve in 9-year cycles, with each phase bringing fresh challenges and insights. In coaching, the number 9 can be a powerful metaphor for growth and mastery. The journey from curiosity to competence is often fluid, shaped by exploration and experience. But what if this journey could also be deliberate, methodical, and structured without losing its depth and richness? This brings us to today's conversation. Our guest today, Ashwini Saraswathi, a highly process-driven and methodical coach, completed her ACC credentials in just 9 months, a journey that is both rare and remarkable. Instead of leaving her growth to chance, she focused and followed a structured, disciplined process, ensuring that each step moved her closer to her goal. Interesting tidbit, she got her credentials on the 27th of January, which adds up to a 9. So that's no coincidence. Through 9 well-defined milestones, she transformed from an aspiring coach to a credentialed professional, balancing the art and science of coaching with precision and purpose. This is what we'll explore in our chat today. We'll explore 9 milestones that she identified to streamline her journey, the process-driven approach that ensured steady progress, and the habits and mindset and discipline that made it possible. So I have 9 questions that Ashwini will answer. And post that, we will open the conversation up for all of you to engage with her in all your doubts, grit, resilience, and anything that's coming in the way of you and your credential, and for the journey to become smoother. So I'm going to begin my first question for Ashwini. Firstly, welcome, Ashwini. Thank you so much for being with us today and for your fantastic journey, inspiring. 9 months is no coincidence, in my view.
Thank you so much, Madhu. It's a wonderful introduction and the power of 9 that I wouldn't have recognized in the beginning of my journey, but I definitely do the way you have summarized it.
Yes.
Thank you.
So let's begin with, we'll lay the groundwork. The first question is about the starting of your journey. When you began your coach training, what was your mindset? Did you have a timeline in mind, or was your focus simply on learning and progressing step by step?
So my training start was more sense-driven. It was very intuitive for me, since I come from a background of a very internal self-inquiry that I have done for myself in my personal journey, and coming from the background of HR. have had thousands of conversations with different kind of people. And somewhere I tried putting a formal structure to these conversations. That's where coaching fit into the picture. When I started, of course, I didn't have a timeline in mind, and I knew what part of the process will take what uh, segment of time. However, I'm more an experiential person, and I was in no hurry to get my credential or become a great coach. I wanted to do the foundation really, really tight and right. So I said, let me start the journey. And my focus was on the step that I was on and the next step that I'm going to take. That's it. Put the entire focus on that. That helped me keep my focus tight and not look at too long a process. I had no clue what was lying ahead. So I said, let me focus on the step next. That really helped me to go deep, far within, to master or bring in a lot more energy into that particular step.
Yeah, that's a lot of focus that you said, one step and then another step that helps you really bring your energy together and just focus on one thing. What is interesting about what you said is you said you took it slow, and we all know that slow is fast. So that was a valuable piece, of information that you shared. Now, what were some of the initial steps that you took to immerse yourself in coaching? Since you said you're experiential in the way you look at life, how did you structure your learning, the process of your learning to ensure steady growth?
There were a few things that I did, which I should thank my mentors, Shri and Lakshan, Shrikant and Lakshan, for this also. One is definitely the very structured, curated learning cohort that we did over the 4 months. Plus, every conversation, every session had a practice conversation for each and every person. So every time I practiced, there was immediate feedback from the entire cohort and the mentors as well. And my only job was to listen to the feedback and implement the feedback. That's it. As simple as that. I didn't have to break my head. That was one. And the assignments played a huge part as well, as part of the program, where the assignments, every time we went back, we read an article or did a case study or did something else as a assignment that really enhanced how I lived the learning and how I was able to bring it back into the next coaching session also.
Yeah.
I think there were different elements that were put into the learning program itself by the facilitators and the mentors. That was a great idea. Personally, I was also living it outside the coaching world. In my regular day, how I talk to my family, how I talk to myself, how I talk to the world, everything slowed down. When I learned about what a pause means in a coaching conversation, what presence means, I brought it in and embodied it in my real life. I didn't have to wait for a coaching conversation to do that. That really helped me bring that depth. And in a coaching conversation, 3 months, 4 months later, it was very effortless for me to stay silent. I still remember in the beginning, first month, I asked Shrikant, I can stay silent, but I'm worried if the client or the coachee will be okay with it. And I was not okay with that. I felt very unsettled. So then I had to work on it in a couple of weeks' time. I just paid attention to what the feedback given, and I was able to bring it in. So I would say followed the learning program that was structured for me already and life.
Yeah, how beautifully said that coaching is not in the conversation alone. It's all pervasive, and that's when you actually embody it as an art, and then that's how you become masterful at it. I think very, very valuable sharing, Ashwini. Now let's move on to your methodical approach. Anybody who knows you, there's no unmistaking that you're somebody with structure, and that's how you do everything. So let's lean into that aspect of you and go on to the next question, which is how do you approach your coursework? How do you do it as when you practice coaching, and also how do you do it with your reflections? Any specific habits or routines that kept you consistent? Because all of us struggle with consistency.
I would say it took me a while to figure out what that consistency or discipline meant to me, or what even habits meant to me. Because I started coaching and a deep dive into yoga. I did my yoga teachers training course. I was living in the ashram and I did my coaching training also. So it was focusing on two different things, two intense different things. I did not have habits in the beginning, to be very honest. I did not have confidence. I was overwhelmed. But when I paused myself and I asked, how is it I want to move forward, especially when my training period was coming to an end? I will have to start with building my 100 hours towards a credential. How am I going to start that? I don't have access to a client base. I have to build all that. Peer coaching was a great avenue where I could take support of peers in my cohort and other cohorts to really practice coaching with. When I say practice, I still bring in real problem statements. I see the other person as my coach, real-time coach in life. And slowly, when I did that, I learned from my own experiences. So I would make a method, build some habits, thinking that it would work. Some things might work, some things might not work. And the one thing that really stayed to me till the end was I do certain things for a month. For the next month, I rewire it wherever needed, which meant I allowed it to evolve and ensured nothing is left to chance. I made it work for me because I am a very, I'm such a person where I want to guard the outcome and I do not want to leave it to chance. Of course, there are things that could be beyond my control, but when I have a possibility of working towards it, why not bring a method to it? So yes, and when I started with that, it gave me a lot more depth into how I can bring in more structure into my process, which meant even peer coaching beyond a point I felt saturated. It did not work for me. So I thought, should I stop peer coaching or can I make it work for me in a way that I need? Nobody has laid down rules on how to do peer coaching, although of course I stick to ICF guidelines. So I said, can I do peer coaching in different methods? And I did that. I had 3 different phases where I explored peer coaching. And the third or fourth phase, I made it work for me. I worked with very fewer coaches, but for a longer journey, seeing them as a client. And a couple of other habits I would say is definitely continuing to embody what I learn in my real life, allowing myself to trust the process, which I learned from Shrikant and Lakshan. Trusting the process really, really helped. I did have ups and downs. How do I bring in habits to ground myself in that process? So the 100 hours is not a one-way move. It's not you climb the mountain just one way. No, you climb, you fall down. You climb, you fall down. Every time you fall down, you pick yourself up and move further up with that learning. That's how it happened. And another thing is definitely watching conversations of other coaches, breaking it down. The first few conversations, easily 10 conversations, I would say I really did a breakdown. I would watch it 2-3 times. I would build personas, different coach personas around it and see how would I have asked these questions in a different way. Yeah.
I love how you said, make it work for me. And you said it a couple of times, make it work for me, make it work for me. What within you makes you say that no matter what, I'll make it work for me?
I have started something for myself with passion, with a certain intent. And I would like this to lead me to something, which means I have to put in effort. And if I have to put in effort, might as well put mindful effort in than just looking at others and how they do it, because each one's journey is different. I can take inspiration from another person, but I would still have to define it for myself. Who better than me to answer these for myself? So yes.
Yeah, nice. Okay. So now let's move into the balancing act of learning with application. Many aspiring coaches struggle to balance theory and practice. How did you ensure that you were not just learning, but also applying these coaching skills effectively? I know that you mentioned that, you took it to your everyday life, but also how did that process of marrying the theory to application happen easily for you?
I think it started with the learning cohort itself. The program itself is structured that way. We had about 15 sessions of 4 hours each over 3.5 months. In every session, there was hardly 20%, 30% theory. And even that theory, we would discuss it with a lot of examples, case studies. So for me, application started right there. So if we spoke about silence, how does silence work in a conversation? Then my job, I really applied it in the immediate practice within that 4 hour window. The moment I understand something, process something, I immediately bring it into my next conversation and I observe myself through the next few conversations on that until it turns into a habit, effortless something for me. That's something that really helped me look at application. And of course, continuous focus on feedbacks from peers, from mentors, from people around to understand how I'm moving forward. And feedback, of course, not all feedback would be relevant, but at least to hear the voice from outside.
There's always those butterflies in the stomach when you have to apply immediately, right? I mean, you learn something, you apply. What happened with you?
I am somebody who jumps in when the butterflies are there also. I would say yes, butterflies were there. I know there are another few more people watching me when I practice, when I coach, I do a demo in the cohort. But if I don't do it there, if I don't stay vulnerable in my cohort amidst my peers, I cannot be vulnerable in front of a client. So I might as well use the platform that I have to deepen my learning rather than trying to do it at a later point in time. So staying vulnerable was really, really important in the initial few months. And also, of course, later with the client journeys also, you are also learning, the client is also learning, you travel together. The coach and the coachee evolve together in that journey. So vulnerability and authenticity was really, really key for me through the entire journey.
Okay. We spoke about how mentoring and feedback, played a significant role in you evolving. But are there any specific call outs that you want to make where some part of that feedback really changed the game for you?
Every feedback really changed the game for me because there are experts on the other side giving me feedback. I might as well just listen to them. And when I say listen, I'm not going to follow blindly on what they say. These mentors also showed what coaching is. I've seen them coaching. So I've seen it real time getting applied. So I understand the depth of how these feedbacks really sink in and how it shows up for a client in their journey. And I really verbalized every part of the feedback and I let it sink in to me. Like I said, embodying it in real life was really, really important. And I've seen a huge shift in how I used to listen to people earlier and how I listen. I used to be an active listener even earlier, but I've stopped coming in the way of people's reflection, people's sharing. I don't have to always say something. This is one small thing, but there are multiple such things that I've brought in. And I've been given this feedback saying Ashwini is somebody, the moment a feedback is given, the next conversation, we know she is implementing it. So that's something that I've heard from my mentors. And even mentoring, I really, I didn't understand the first mentoring session. I just walked in blank saying, okay, you mentor me. Mentoring is your job, mentor me. And the session happened, but then 1 or 2 sessions later, I understood this is my hour with my mentor and it is given for me for my improvement. Can I again make it the way it works for me? So by the second or third session, I went with a list saying, these are my observations. I'm good with technical feedbacks. I know about it. I will correct it over a period of time. But these are the patterns that I observe in me. These are certain limiting beliefs that's coming, appearing in front of me when I coach. So I went with certain very specific observations about me, saying, how do I work on these in the coaching conversation? That really helped me bring in a larger shift.
Yeah.
And I would go in with various conversations. Eventually, we stopped looking at the whole conversation. We only looked at parts of the conversation because I was very clear on what I needed feedback on. So bringing in that clarity over a period of time really helped. Not waiting for the mentor to comment, but I sought feedback also in a certain form.
Yeah. So you even made this work for you.
Yeah.
Lovely. It seems to me like it's an equal partnership where you're equally invested. Going into the mentorship conversation itself, you're half prepared, and then when the two pieces come together, of course, the result is always compounding and never incremental. Lovely sharing,
That
Ashwini.
happens because I always take the accountability on myself.
Mm.
And just because I've invested in a program and somebody else is there to guide me, it's not on them. Right from the first day, it is on me. I own my journey and I make it happen. There's, of course,
Lovely.
credential is not the only milestone, that's the first milestone. There's a lot more in the journey. I may seem not understanding about certain things, but that is to figure out in that journey.
Yeah. Okay, so now let's get into an aspect of time. Time is the only exhaustible resource, and time is a thief. So let's talk time management. Uh, your journey, now that we've been speaking for about 25 minutes, we know that there's method to the madness and it's well paced. But can you share with the audience here as to what time management strategies helped you maintain this momentum, so that without feeling overwhelmed?
I would say the first, this is a habit that I've developed over the last few years, where when I see time also is a big value for me in life. I plan to the minutest possible details so that again I don't leave anything to chance unless an exigency occurs. So every week there was 4 hours assigned for our learning module. That's not it. When I sit for 4 hours in a learning session, there is a lot that I have to process for myself, work on it, and apply it, all that. So I wouldn't block only 4 hours. I would probably dedicate 10 hours per week. That was my first step. We had sessions every Sunday. And like I said, I was living in the ashram. I had other work to do there as well. So I used to factor in time and not say, it's just 4 hours, I'll finish and I'll be done. No, I will need more time. And I'll have to be cognizant of this journey, which also triggers certain things that you have not probably dealt with. And it lets you, although you're learning to coach, but this is going into deep into your being state, your beliefs, values, thoughts, your past, everything gets stirred up also. And if I've not addressed it, then I need to process it. Being cognizant of those things in the journey so that it doesn't come in the way of me moving forward with progress. That was the first step I took and I sustained it throughout. The second is, of course, like I said, I allowed the method and approach to keep evolving. So every month I had a certain plan. Of course, I didn't know this is going to take 9 months. I didn't not even plan. I want to do this in 12 months, 9 months, 10 months. I had no such plan. I said, let me see one step at a time. I think by the third month, I got a hang of how to start thinking about next steps, my 100 hours, completing my assignments, everything. And in the the third month when I started coaching practice, I got a little bit stuck saying, how do I do this practice? 2 hours, 3 hours seems so difficult. How am I going to reach 100 hours? That itself was very overwhelming. And I am not somebody who randomly can practice with anybody. I need certain things to fall in place for me, again, to make it work for me. So the next step, the next month was to identify people whose value systems complement mine and theirs. So then that really helped me. that I can really focus on my coaching and learning out of that. I did not have to battle on who we are as two people. That was not necessary. So that's how it started. And from there on, I was able to crystallize the aspect of time slowly. That also evolved. So in the month of June, when I got the credential in Jan, so in June and July, my target was I will have the credential in September. I did a simple calculation of so many hours every month, and you should be able to do it. Um, I realized 2 months into it, that's not how it works. It didn't work that way. Then I had to put a method into the practice and factor in time. So I reverse calculated. If I have to finish by a certain timeline, I had December in mind. If I have to finish by December, what is more pragmatic in terms of planning? So I did a reverse calculation and I said, okay, this is what is humanly possible. Again, that also did not work. Doing 3-4 coaching sessions in a day or even back-to-back coaching sessions, it drains you out. And if it drains me out, I cannot be fully present with a client. I realized that, and I had to rework on my plan and be very realistic about what can work. So which means probably 5 to 6 coaching conversations in a week, max to max, not more than that. That really helped me use my energy optimally, but still keep progressing in the right pace. So I allowed it to crystallize over time and being very pragmatic about how much time is actually needed and not what I think will be needed.
Yeah, that was practical advice. I think that can be taken straight in. It's a no-brainer practical advice. Thank you, Ashwini,
And
for
also
that.
leaving room for life happens. So
Yes.
if something doesn't go by plan, being okay with it and just do a replan. Do not worry about what's gone by. Replan and make it work.
Yeah. In your journey, there would have been where you felt that the progress was slightly slow than anticipated, than expected. You partly answered that question, but however, how did you keep going? Sometimes when things don't go, like I go through this myself, I get very restless. When things are not going the way I planned it, I tend to get restless, and then it takes time for me to get back into the zone where I operate best. But I mean, is that something that you've gone through? And if you did, what were some of the things that brought you back without wasting too much
Definitely, yes.
time?
It was also a significant thing in my journey at different points in time. One is I did take breaks. For a week or two, I would have stopped coaching. Anything coaching, I would have stayed very far away, deliberately. And the other thing that really helped me jump back with a lot more energy, I didn't, there was no need to have the feeling of missing out, FOMO, like people say. I didn't have to feel that way. It is a many months journey, and missing a week or two in between, it's okay. You're taking time for yourself, focusing on other things. That was one, taking breaks. I did that twice or thrice in the journey. A good 1 week, 2 week break. I just didn't do coaching. I didn't allow myself to be coached also. That was one. Second, regularly being in conversation with my peers on how to just hear how their journey is. It's not just me who's going through different things. Everybody's going through their own journey with different kind of ups and downs. That really helps you feel the energy of the community around you. And the third, I had a coach for myself in real time. Apart from the mentor, I had a coach. So anything that came up which I wanted to process may not be directly linked to my coaching journey, but otherwise in life, how it started showing up, I would have picked up that, and I allowed myself to be coached with an expert coach. I would say these are some things that really helped me. And I am a person who has grown to really listen to my body and my mind and go by that. That's my compass. I would say I always follow my inner compass. And that really helps me to adjust my pace when it is needed. So I would never call my pace as fast or slow. Fast or slow is very subjective. What seems fast today, tomorrow might seem slow, vice versa. So I allowed pace is pace, and whatever is the appropriate pace for me at that point in time, I loved it. I accepted it.
Lovely, lovely, lovely. Now that we've journeyed along, you've done all of it. You shared everything with us. Now to the very crucial step of
Sorry, I
reaching.
wanted to add one more thing to the
Of
time
course,
part.
of course. Yes.
Having the right support system or the mentor to actually guide you through the entire process very diligently, where they come in with a knowledge of, say, ICF, what is the process, how much time will it actually take? It's very important to have that support system. You cannot do it all. And there's absolutely no shame in relying on support system until you build it for yourself. That really helped me with time management and planning as well.
Thank you for sharing, Ashwini. Yeah. So now, the last stage in the journey, which is the credentialing itself, it's the exam. And how did you process this entire examination, and what prep did you do to go into it? And how were you feeling? Tell us the entire story, spill the beans on that.
The moment we think of the word exam, having been conditioned in an Indian education system, exam means preparation. Exam means we have to dedicate time, 2 days, 3 days, 1 week, whatever time, we have to dedicatedly sit and focus and prepare, revise, and give the exam. And for this exam, I started asking myself, why should I prepare? I've had a very experiential journey, learning, applying it. Everything has been very experiential. And the exam is very simply focused on Code of Ethics. This is a new ACC exam, a much simplified version since the last 6 months. Code of Ethics, ICF core competencies, what does coaching mean as per ICF, and what is the difference between coaching and other modalities, therapy, consulting, training, different things. This is exactly what I learned and I applied. So I understood, I had this in my mind as a sense, and I validated it after giving the exam. I thought if I've actually lived these things, then what is the preparation needed? But conditioning comes in. I still blocked one entire day to sit and prepare. I spoke to a few people who already gave the exam. They gave me pointers on what to prepare on. So I gathered all the material from the website, my learning modules, whatever, gathered everything, kept it ready on the D day to sit and prepare. When I sat, again, the question of what do I prepare? Probably I spent 1 hour, 1.5 hours just brushing through ethics and core competencies, looking back at my journey, all of that. I think I spent about 1 hour, 1.5 hours. And I also learned, I said I will cover everything in ICF website for the exam. And I realized half of it don't really, it is redundant, basically. And when I gave the exam, it was supposed to be an exam meant, I think it's about 2 hours, 2.5 hours, and a non-native English-speaking country gets more time also. I walked out of the exam in 45 minutes. There is a 10-minute break that you can take between 2 sections. I didn't take the break also. I wanted to finish in one flow. When I walked out of the exam, the only thing that I told my mentor and other people is, this is very specific to my learning journey. If I have sat through the level 1 program of Shrikant and Lakshan, and I have lived that learning in my 100 hours of coaching, there is no preparation needed. Nothing is needed. It's all experiential. If you've lived that, you'll be able to answer the questions. And the questions were not very detailed scenario-based, slightly scenario-based, and it makes you think. So if you've done that diligently, there is not much of thinking needed during the exam. That was my experience with the exam, and that's what I've been telling others, my peers also, who are looking to appear for the exam. So that gave me a very powerful realization. We don't have to, we bring in our past conditioning of what something looks like. Exam means a big thing. But as you grow up in life, in terms of profession, if you've lived it, It's all there and you've embodied it. You just have to allow it to come out. And people keep asking me, so you're a coach, you're a very different person when you coach. I would say it's the alternate. When I coach, that's the time where my real self really comes out. And I've done that work in the journey of putting myself out there with authenticity. And that's what matters. So when I coach, it's my whole self that comes in. I don't put on a persona, I don't put on a different mask when I coach. That's why probably it feels very effortless.
Yeah. And that's what coaching should be, and that's what a coach should be, bringing their full self and just being themselves, and bringing who they actually are, and not putting on a coaching hat. It's who you are. Yeah, lovely sharing, Ashwini. So the last question, now that, exam done, credential coach, and then, lessons and advice for folks who are waiting to take their journey forward and to get credentialed. I know some of them, are committed, or we made them commit to finishing it by the end of June 2025. What advice would you give them? Specific advice that they can really take back today and do something differently so that they move in this journey faster than they anticipated.
I would say, although each person's journey is very unique, it's important for them to ask themselves, look within, and see what works for them. What works for me may not work for another. But some things that are very common is trust the process and find your pace. It can go up and down, but find what fits you, what your pace is. There are many people around the environment, the world functions in a way to make you feel like, oh, I'm not good enough. Don't listen to any of that. Or if you listen, 1 year in, the other year out. What matters is, how am I moving forward in my journey? It's my journey. It's nobody else's journey. That's another thing I would say. And be very diligent with your method, whatever method works for you. And it is okay if you don't understand it fully, allow it to evolve. As with whatever clarity you have right now, bring in a method and keep moving forward, whatever works for you. And the last thing I would say definitely is, it's very important to have the right support system. When I say support system, a mentor who can mentor you through the journey, peers in the journey, and a coach for yourself. Coach or any support system where you're able to process your own journey. I have this belief, no matter how much of expertise I can carry, even after like say 20 years of coaching, I may be an expert in coaching others. Am I an expert in coaching myself? The answer will be a no. I may have to still rely on support. That really brings in a lot of value. It allows me to focus on what I have to do and not battle with things which I don't have to. We don't have to battle with everything. Choose your battles wisely.
Absolutely. That is a very wise ending to our 9-question summary. Let's open up the conversation to everybody. I don't know if there are any comments in the chat.
While you look for that, I'll probably add another thing with respect to
Yes, go
time.
ahead.
Although I have done it in 9 months, do not take pressure. 9 months is my timeline, and it can be even 2 years for you, 1.5 years, 1 year, 6 months. Anything is fine. There is no pressure. You define what works for you. Everybody has a very different life. What parts of life that we all function in is very, very different. It is important to heed to how your life is structured.
Absolutely. So we don't have any questions in the chat box, but yeah, everybody, please come on video if you have a question to ask Ashwini. We have 17 minutes left in our time together.
May I?
Yes, please.
Yeah, I wanted to ask Ashwini, for me, I am like wearing too many hats as a mother, as a homemaker, and now I've come back into my stepping into my career after a long break of 10 years. So sometimes I feel very overwhelming. Like today also I had a conversation with one of my peers. We both, most of us are we find ourselves in a situation where you have to just switch places. One time you're a mother, one time you're a homemaker, one time you're the child. So sometimes you're not able to do justice with anything. And by the end of the day, you feel that what have you done? How are you going? How do you take it forward? So sometimes it feels so, you feel so lost. So that I just wanted to know how, Ashwini, how did you just swim through all these things? How did you make it for yourself that?
You're right. Different each one has their own multiple roles that they play, multiple hats that they wear, which is why I said, own your journey, do what works for you. When you speak about justice, what does doing justice mean to you at that point in time? You might say, I could do only 10%, but in that frame of time, that was your 100%, not 10%. You're defining it as probably 10% in comparison to some other. You would have performed very well the previous day. But today, yesterday's 10% could be your 100% today. So I would leave you with a question on what does justice mean, doing justice mean to you? That's why I said we know what are the milestones. We wear multiple hats. We cannot escape from these roles that we are doing. And priorities keep changing every day, every now and then. Heeding to those priorities really helped me. Acknowledging and accepting really helped me. The other thing that really helped me was building comfort around discomfort, allowing the discomfort to stay. What happens? I don't feel okay. I feel overwhelmed. I have an observation that I feel overwhelmed. Let it be. I told this to myself. I'm not telling you. I told this to myself. The moment I stop accepting that overwhelm, I say it's not okay, that is when it starts affecting me. That's something that really, really has helped me, not just in my coaching journey, in other parts of life also. Some things are beyond your control. It happens. It leaves you with certain emotions and feelings. What can I do? That acceptance really helps. Nobody can give that acceptance. I will have to build it for myself. I really have to be okay with things not being okay. And believing that it will change. The other thing I would add on is we always come to conclusions or make opinions based on the frame of our past experiences. So trying to drop that frame of past experience could also help. See, every day, every experience is a new experience from a completely new lens. Then probably we'll stop comparing to something in the past. If we can switch our frames to a completely new experience, then maybe it will allow us to process and move forward accordingly. Does that help?
So much, yes. And one more on discipline. How were you so disciplined throughout this journey? What helped you?
Like I said, making it work for me didn't come new now. It's not just about coaching. In the last few years, when I would make a plan, it won't happen. I will always have a endless to-do list. Half of it, 75% of it will never happen. It'll just keep moving from one day to another day. I said, what am I doing? Either I'm not planning it right, or somewhere something is happening in the process. So that really helped me understand. One is definitely being cognizant of time, being very, very pragmatic with time. And second, habits are very important. How do I have habits in my overall life? If I wake up at a particular time, I wake up. If I sleep at a particular time, I sleep. If I eat at a particular time, I eat. If I approach a certain thing in a certain manner, I do it. And this means I had to draw a lot of boundaries with people around, with the world around. So be it. If that is what is serving me moving forward in life. When I say boundaries that serve you to be functioning in your optimal self. not picking up battles with people. Those boundaries really help. Habits are a key thing. I used to wonder many years back, why do people say that this 5 a.m. club, people who wake up early win the world? I never used to understand. I used to wake up at 8 o'clock, 9 o'clock back then, so many years back. Now I don't. And now, but when I started bringing in habits into putting habits into place, I really understood the power of it. It might seem very trivial when we don't have habits in place. Skipping it for a day or two is fine.
Hello.
But over a period of time, it really matters. It has a lot of power with habits. I'm not saying I'm super duper in it, but I've built something for this phase of life. It really helps me. There's of course a lot more that I also have to bring in terms of discipline.
Thank you so much. Thank you.
One thing I've really learned is beating myself up is a no-go. It doesn't serve me with anything. It only weighs me down. There are 100 reasons why you can judge yourself, weigh you down, but it doesn't serve you at all. I might still do it in some parts of my life, but I'm learning to not do that.
Ashwini, do you want to talk a little bit about boundaries? Because boundaries is something that people find difficult to address. Also, when you're so engrossed in doing something, your ecosystem, suddenly resists this entire, newness about you, and they can't deal with it because they're used to you in a certain way. So I think that would be useful for the audience to know as to how would you draw those boundaries.
For me, boundaries came into life in a very different way, and I had to do it. I'll not touch that, I'll share that later. What I've learned is boundaries is not keeping people away, but taking people along with you in the journey. So if I'm doing something new, and if there are people around who are getting impacted by it in whatever way, it is on me to ensure I bring people together and I take them along. So for example, my parents and my sister have nothing to do with my coaching journey. But the reason I bring them on board saying this is what I'm planning to do, this is what my journey has been, and this is how it's been, this is how I've been given feedbacks, it really helps them be a part of my life. And when I say something at some point in time, they understand. I do not have to over explain. That is also boundaries. And boundaries could mean different things for different people. So it's important to understand it is not an overnight thing that you can do. Boundaries is not rebelling. While I could have done that, that's how I started. For me, boundaries meant building walls in the beginning because I did not have the inner strength to stick to the boundary myself. I myself will cross the boundary before somebody else crosses my boundary. So I had to build thick walls until I built my inner strength. The moment my strength came in, walls were not needed. But it took some time. And these are things where you have to do it in every part of your life. You have to live it. And boundaries, when you know what your boundaries are, you know what you want for yourself in life, you know what works for you in life. That is boundaries. Sometimes it's very negative. The word boundary is very negatively indicated, but it is simply awareness about who you are, what you want, what works for you, and how are you actually living all of that.
Ruchika, were you going to ask something? Yes, go ahead.
Yeah, so a couple of them. Okay, my first question is, when you were talking, I hear you talk about methods. So what do you mean by that? And what are a few methods, if you can tell us?
For me, I was all like Madhu started this conversation. I was always a very process-driven person. Anything I do, my simple day, wake up to sleep, has some process. And that's how it works for me. Not everybody needs to be a process-driven person. Method is basically, there is a start, there is an end, and there is a journey in between. What moves you from the start through the journey to the end? As simple as that. Whatever moves you from point A to point B through that journey. Of course, in that ethically, mindfully, in a way that it works for you, all that has to be taken care of. But I do not, although in the start of the conversation, I said I didn't have a timeline in mind, I didn't have an end in mind. Starting this journey was not about getting a credential for me. It was about how do I allow coaching to evolve as a skill in me? How do I integrate coaching in who I am as a person? And how do I eventually offer myself to people or to the world? I don't want to offer coaching. I want to offer me in the process. For me, that was my end state. Of course, I've not reached the end state. I'm journeying in that state. Credential is one milestone which offers credibility, very structured and standardized learning methods, certain guardrails which I stick to in terms of the profession.
Do you have any like one or two methods that you can share with us that's really worked for you? May not work for us, but if you share us, we'll have it in mind. Something.
Method, I would say, one was definitely tracking my hours very diligently, right from the first to the end, very diligently tracking my hours and doing a little bit of analysis on the hours. How many were client hours and how many were peer coaching hours? How many did I do each month? And how was it spaced between different weeks? And how did the hours grow over time? So I didn't do 20 hours a month at the start. I probably started with 4 hours, 5 hours a month. And then it grew. That was one. Second is tracking my progress. And I would not say I'm a person, I don't have to note down everything. My memory is very strong. So sometimes it's just in my mind. People can note it down also. Tracking your progress on a certain periodical basis, month on month, week on week, or once in 2 months, whatever works. And really acknowledging how my progress has been, where I started from and where I am in 2 months. Acknowledging that progress really tells me if I can come this far, I can go even farther. That was one. And the third one is, I don't know if it's a method, but if there is an expert telling you something, just listen. Just follow it. Blindly follow it. Follow and then decide if it doesn't work, drop it. But don't question before you do it. Try it.
Go ahead, Sabha.
I have another one, Sabha.
Ruchika, we'll just have Sabha ask a question and we'll come back to you because we have just 3 minutes left. Go ahead, Sabha.
Hi, everyone. I came late to the conversation. I'm very sorry. And I will ask question. Maybe you already covered. I'll just ask and let me know. If it's covered, then I will watch the recording. So while you are talking about, registering our hours and, time log and all of that, and then reflecting and see how much we are progressing. I wonder if we, between us, we always ask, should we just stick to this, our peer coaches, because we know this, we are using the same standards, same methods and all of that. So this way we'll stay focused on what we learned, or it is worthwhile for us to, try flavors from here and there, like some people from the coaching website, others from PCC coaches, the bigger coach, a real client, and then another peer coaching. We make up flowers, and and then is it worthwhile? Is it gonna add to our experience, or is it gonna impact our learning?
In my journey, I definitely allowed experimentation. I started with coaching with my peers in the known circle or from the circle who all of us trained from the same mentor. from Shrikant and Lakshan. But I also did connect with people beyond this circle. And that gave me a lot of learning experience. When people were trained from different institutes, that really gave me an experience of how coaching happened. So I would definitely say if you're up for experimentation, I wouldn't even call it experimentation. It's part of your learning progress.
Okay, thank you very much, Ashwini.
The more you do, the more you're ready for coaching real clients. Real clients are nothing like what we see in practice.
Go ahead, Ruchika.
If somebody else has, because there's less time, I am okay. If somebody else has any question.
Deepa, you turned your camera on.
I have one question.
Go ahead, Rajneesh.
Yeah, Rajneesh.
Go ahead.
It is regarding those 100 hours which you were talking about. So just wanted to ask, what was the breakup basically to make up these 100 hours between the peer coaching practice, or maybe if some real audiences were also part of these 100 hours?
I did work with real clients. Since I did not come with the background of having access to clients already, I tried putting a target for myself, saying I should achieve so many hours only with real clients and so many hours with peer coaching is fine. But I also felt I was setting up myself for something which I don't know. And I realized practicing coaching or building that 100 hours as a coach and figuring out how to attract clients are two different roles. It's a completely different ballgame. I did not want to invest my time into attracting clients. And I wanted to invest my time focusing on my skill. And I coached, of course. So clients, who did I work with? People from my known circle who knew I was coaching. I started coaching, and they have seen me as a person. They valued what I could bring in as a coach. They had no clue what qualification I did, what learning I did, how much I practiced. They had no clue. But what they simply told me was, Ashwini, if you have started coaching clients, I want to be your client. There were 4 or 5 people who told me this. They're from the known circles. And that's how I worked with, I think I had about 8 to 10 clients for my 100 hours. Some people I did only 2 to 3 sessions. Some people I would have done 10 or 15 sessions. And I allowed that to pan out. I did not set very concrete targets for myself. Then I'm also pressurizing myself for a complete new skill, which I don't have yet. And I saw many peer coaches out there in the world. No, I'm not talking about our cohorts alone. Worrying and struggling too much about the business part of it, which really interrupts the learning time initially. And I very clearly told myself, this is not my time to figure out the business side of it. That will happen eventually. It's due to happen, but today maybe not.
So, Ashwini, what was the breakup? Sorry. If you can share what was the breakup basically between the peer-to-peer coaching and the real-time coaching to get to
this
this
was a different person. No, ICF mandates a minimum 75% as paid. The breakup need not be between peer coaching and clients. The breakup is between minimum 75% of paid engagement. Paid engagements can be with a client, can be a peer coaching, because peer coaching happens on barter. So see the breakup that way. And peer coaching works very differently for different people. So you'll have to understand how peer coaching serves you. And if it serves you, then do more of it. If it's not serving you, then see how do you want to work around it.
Okay, thanks.
Ruchika, we'll take your question and then we'll close the session. Deepa, unless you had something to ask. No, okay. Ruchika, last question. Nitya, I heard you raise your hand. Okay, let's go to Nitya first and then we'll come to Ruchika. Last 2 questions, yeah? Go ahead, Nitya.
Ashwini, thank you. And Madhu, it's been really nice because from the time the cohort ended, I feel I'm like a bird who's going to different trees and still figuring out what's helping me. What would you say would help in a coach being creative, not being monotonous?
I did that. for a few coaching sessions in between, I skip the structure. Doesn't mean I will advise it for everybody, but what is the autonomy you hold in your engagement with the coachee or the client that you're giving, without compromising on the quality of coaching and the guidelines of coaching? Be creative in the process without force fitting in. So sometimes if it meant for me, so I'm a very intuitive sense person, and for me the conversation has to flow. So in a phase in between these 100 hours, I think around the first 20, 30 hours, I couldn't bring the structure of agreements and everything very diligently in every conversation. And I said, it's okay. As long as I'm taking care of the quality of coaching and not compromising on anything, then I said, it's okay. It is okay if I don't. I learned to bring an agreement in, but in some conversations, I allowed some sort of experimentation and creativity to come in. But I was aware it is for me to learn, and I will have to tie it back in the conversation. What the coachee walks away is still the most important one. The conversation cannot be about me, as in about what I want. It has to be about the client. In that process, if I can find space to be creative, be creative. You should be creative, I would say. That's where your who you are comes into the picture. Although we learn from different institutes, we are taught in a certain way. ICF has set guidelines. The fact that there are so many coaches out there in the world means each of them bring a specific element about themselves as a coach. And you would have experienced being coached by different people is a very different experience.
Go ahead, Ruchika.
She just answered it.
Okay, awesome.
I think Sabha has one.
Go ahead, Sabha. Last question.
Really quick. I heard from different coaches that there is two kind of ACC exam. One is the easy one, and then there is the hard one. And I think if you take the easy one, then you need to do again exam for PCC, something like that.
So
is it
what you're saying is technically valid for another 15 days. After that, ICF, right, Madhu? ICF, I think till 14th March is when.
Yes.
For ACC, only the new ACC exam will be applicable after 15th March.
Okay.
Until then, the recommendation is still to take the new ACC exam. But if somebody is saying they're ready to apply for a PCC within a year or something like that, sooner, then you can take the credentialing exam directly so that you don't have to redo it, something like that. But in your case, in anybody who is new to coaching and are appearing for exam, it's the new ACC exam.
Yeah. No. It's the easy one.
The easy one.
So I will also say it's easy relative to the other exam. I wouldn't say you will still have to put your thinking hats on. And it is easy when you have done your 100 hours very diligently.
Lovely. So that brings us to the end of our fireside chat. Of course, we didn't have much fire, but there's a lot of crackle. The fire you didn't see physically, but of course, I'm sure it's burning within all of us to become better versions of ourselves as coaches. Thank you very much for joining us in this wonderful engagement, for all your questions and for tuning in. So we'll see you next month, the last Friday of March, with another coach and another journey.
Madhu, before we close, just a couple of announcements I want to make. So we spoke about the ACC exam towards the end of the session. We came up in the middle also. I want to say that on 21st of March, that is exactly 3 weeks from now, we'll be doing a panel discussion on the ACC exam. So of course, Ashwini is going to be one of the people who's going to be part of the discussion. So you'll be able to deep dive and ask her all the questions you want to ask her, so that you're as clear as you can be before you apply before you go and write the exam.
We will have a panel of 4 to 5 coaches who have already given the ACC exam, and I'll host it. So any questions, please come with your questions and we can crash it out.
Yeah, please mark your calendars now itself. sometimes you may miss the link for whatever reason. That's one thing. Second thing is we'll be starting our newest cohort of the level 1 program that most of you guys over here have gone through. It's going to be a hybrid program, which means 4 days we'll be doing it residential, and the remaining portion of the program will be covered online. So if there are people that you know who you feel would benefit from a level 1 program, whether they want to become coaches or just develop the skills or just go through a transformative experience for themselves, please refer them in our direction. Cool.
Awesome. Okay. Yes. Thank you very much, everybody. Good